Hey, good morning, everybody. Great to see everybody this morning. We had a packed day yesterday. I'm Claudia Reuter. I'm the Executive Director of Engineering Innovation and the Director of the Roberts Innovation Fund. Just thrilled to have so many people joining us on the tech track here at the Yale Innovation Summit this week. We've got a full day ahead with multiple panels here in room 2400, as well as some panels later in the afternoon in the forum. So please do look at the schedule and figure out what's best for you. But I think you'll all be excited about the amazing folks we have with us today. We have a panel about to kick off here. I want to introduce Rob Lalka. If you want to, I'll just pass you the mic, actually. He'll be moderating, and I'll let everyone kick off from there.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Oh, come on. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, everyone. Thanks for getting up early to discuss entrepreneurship. This will be fun. My name is Rob, and I teach at Tulane. I run the Entrepreneurship Center there, but I have the good fortune of I was back for my 20-year reunion, and so good fortune of returning home. And I'll just say, I'm so impressed by what's happening with Yale in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship. There were so many cool ideas that, we just talked about in the dorm rooms, and now they're actually being brought to market. And so what we wanted to talk about is sort of take that as inspiration to discuss today. How do you do that as well as possible, as thoughtfully as possible, especially with a lot of larger societal and global trends that are outside of your control? And so we'll begin just by running down the line. I'll go from my right to left, your left to right. Just let's do quick introductions about the work that you were doing and what you're most excited about right now. Tell a story or two about how you got here and the things that are inspiring you. And then we're going to then bring that into a discussion about what does it mean for you as entrepreneurs, as investors, and as people who are trying to build an ecosystem here in New Haven. So let's begin with that.
I got here walking.
Yeah, good.
Okay. How's everybody doing? My name is Mahesh Guruswamy. I'm the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Kickstarter. As you can see, I'm the T-shirts. I'm the tech guy. You can tell. So what's the story about myself? First of all, I'm not as smart as all of you folks. So I'm always an average academic. I say that up front because it kind of diffuses the tension in the room because I'm not that smart, right? But what I did was I am very comfortable with taking risks. So one of the things all of you should think about is taking risks. And I made my way through the tech line. I was a developer first. The first 10 years, I was a developer. Last 10 years, I've been in engineering leadership roles. The last 5, I've been in executive roles. And the one thing that really excites me is providing a place for creativity. Kickstarter is the place where creative ideas come to life. And I've always orbited around creator economy companies. And the thing that excites me to this date is Kickstarter. You can go to Kickstarter with just an idea and raise money for it. And we're still doing well, and I hope some of you end up running Kickstarter campaigns. So that's me.
Great. Linda Rottenberg. I'm so proud, first of all, to be on the inaugural advisory board of Yale Ventures, and what is going on here in Yale and New Haven is so exciting, and I'm glad to be a little part of it. I'm actually off to my Harvard reunion, but I did see the light and came here to law school. And that's where my story starts, when professors took pity on me because I was the only person in my class that didn't have the next 2 or 3 years of their lives set. And they sent me down to Latin America to go work on the first interdisciplinary law and business school. One of my claims to fame is I racked up the highest phone bills in Yale's history as and calling in. I'm so old. This was like pre-internet. So I realized no one's starting businesses, and I didn't understand why. There wasn't even a word for entrepreneur in Spanish or Portuguese or most of the languages. And one of the early stories, I'll tell a different story than I usually do, because I was chica loca for suggesting there were entrepreneurs in Latin America and other emerging markets. And one of the first 4 companies we found, there were 2 Stanford guys who decided to leave the Silicon Valley. This is 1999. It was not obvious. They moved back to Buenos Aires, and we met them literally in their cafeteria. No one had a garage, so they didn't understand the Steve Jobs story. And they were building in a little cafeteria, and they wanted to build the eBay of Latin America. Well, this week, Marcus Galperin, our Endeavor entrepreneur, who's now on my board in Argentina and invests in our fund, he just stepped down as CEO of Mercado Libre The market cap of that company based in Buenos Aires, $130 billion. It's the highest valued company on the continent of Latin America, in a place that 27 years ago, no one thought there were entrepreneurs. And so what excites me, and so we have a hybrid model. We build ecosystems with a nonprofit. We have funds. We're raising our 5th fund now. We'll have close to 900 million under management at the end of that. And our 45th market is Ukraine. And what is so exciting is we are seeing the greatest innovations coming out of places that are so difficult, Turkey, Ukraine. And the last thing I'll end with here, so we asked one of our entrepreneurs who's building Headway. I don't know if any of you use Headway app. It's the micro-learning app. Okay, based in Kyiv. Incredible company. And we asked Anton, the founder, so what keeps you up at night? And, you get different founder answers. His I'd never heard before. The answer was bombs. And so I just want to say, I know we're getting scared here. We're talking about things right, but I want you to realize, like you said, not only take the risk, but innovation is about thinking 5 steps ahead and what will be tomorrow, even if today isn't good. And just remember, the top innovations are born in moments of chaos. So this is the best time ever to be an entrepreneur.
Okay, thank you. My name is Liangbing. I'm a professor in the School of Engineering from the Department of Electrical Engineering, Electrical and Computer Engineering, and also Material Science. I came by driving. I was almost late, and it's just like my startup companies. When they raise money, they're always like cutting away, trying to survive. The wrong way and all these things. Yeah. So I'm a professor, so I do research. Right. I'm interested in publishing papers in Science and Nature, those top journals. But at the same time, on the flip side, I'm very interested in translate those innovations or research activities into startup companies. I first started when I was actually a graduate student, right after UCLA, a PhD in physics, and I spent a few years in Silicon Valley back in 2006. And that time we raised about $40 million. Those years are good years, okay, before 2008. And so I learned a lot, and I also found myself, I really like that. So I think to many graduate student or even undergrad student, you can do both. You can do research, and you can also do startup companies. Actually, that really motivated me to be a professor later on, because that job allows you to do both. And so I moved to Yale last July, and before that I was in University of Maryland for 13 years. So in Maryland, I co-funded quite a few companies, including Liangbing Hu. So that company is basically scaling up the manufacturing of a material called a superwood. So that was published in Nature back in 2018. And the same month, I also published a paper in Science as a cover on thermal shock catalyst. So 2 years later, I also co-founded the other company on this something called high tech. So now 6 years later, both companies are still there. They are basically scale up the manufacturing, and we have a plant in Maryland, and funded mainly by DOE ARPA-E. The plant itself is about $30 million, and we'll keep raising funding to keep moving on. Yeah. So I have a lot of things to share, a lot of pain. Actually, just like I was almost late today. Many startup companies very often is in this survival mode. And we always say, including Liangbing Hu, we say if we can survive for 5 years, and we can survive for 100 years. I think so. You have a long vision of the company, but also you have actually practical challenges. So don't be late, okay? Because if you have but you can be almost late, but don't be late. If you are late, then that will actually have a real challenge for the startup companies. Yeah. So I will stop here.
All right, that's a great beginning of the conversation. I want to anchor us in the current moment that we are in. We're not going to have answers to the questions that this will raise. We'll hopefully help you ask good questions is the goal of this next part, okay? So we're in a situation where the ARPA-E type funding that you're talking about is at least unpredictable, to put it that way. And those grants and that uncertainty, it really does stymie the long-term innovation. Other issues in terms of visas and all of these other concerns, I'd love to discuss that as well. Linda, would you kick us off where just sort of let us know what you're seeing through your entrepreneur's eyes of what does it mean for innovation in terms of where we are?
Yeah, I'm going to be the optimist here because, I mentioned that of our 45 markets, our latest is Ukraine. You would think investors would be shying away from Ukraine right now. This is not exactly a stable place, and they're not because they see the talent, right? And I was saying before we were talking, investors are lemmings, and they get a lot of FOMO. And so one of the things I've been talking about with Josh here is that you have Biohaven, which has been this incredible success. Vlad's done an incredible job. Once you start seeing 2 or 3 successes in a place, the investors that missed out on those early deals will come. That is what we've seen. And so I think that people are looking for places to place money. I know that people think that there's no, things have dried up. So what I would say is, the best entrepreneurs are solving real problems at scale. And I think that to be smart now, to drive your own story, it's better to not raise funding early. I think the other thing you have to realize is the companies that raised at $1 billion valuation in 2021, we've seen a lot of them, they're miserable. Because they raised too much, they took the money, and now they have to work towards profitability, they have to do all the layoffs. So to raise in periods where funding is scarce, you get to build the company you want to build on your own terms and then take capital when you've had the proof points and the traction, and you get to drive your own story. So that's what we're seeing. We're not seeing capital drying up. We're seeing it going to different places where they see opportunities, but we're seeing smarter startups led by smarter entrepreneurs.
Bing, what do you see with that? Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that's very important. I think staying lean as well. Some companies raise a lot of money in the good years. Now they have to fire people because of now they have a gap and they are kind of late. So I think that's really resonant with what I experienced in my startup companies. You build a solid foundation, figure out the real challenges in manufacturing, and then be honest to yourself, like where we are and what we want to be, and then see what's the gap. And in the bad days now, I think we can maybe again stay lean, and of course you still need to keep raising money, even keep the current size. Yeah. So, I think. Again, because I've been talking to the CEOs of the startup companies and experience the challenges we're having right now, especially you mentioned APAE and the DOE, EIE, and so we're looking for ways to how to really pass this stage, but at the same time and really look more inside your company and answer the hard questions like what we really want to do, what we really need. And so on and so forth. Yeah. So this kind of self-examination actually is sometimes in the long run may be helpful for the company's growth. Yeah.
Mahesh, I know you have some experience in this world about as you go out to raise, how much do you raise and what's appropriate for the founder versus the rest of the company for their own out. What's your advice as someone's going out to raise around maybe an entrepreneur in here who's been successful already and they've started to see the company grow, but they need more capital in an environment like this one?
I think Linda should jump in here as well. My advice is to raise just enough. And once you get traction, once you have market validation, when you hit like product market fit, like that's the time to go big and raise more money. I think my general advice is always ask yourself, what do you need the money for? And if you can get away with not raising money, don't. Like if you can live off of the profits, then just do that. Because the more money you raise, the more you are somewhat giving up your rights to some other entity to control your destiny. So raise only as much as you need. And I think it's not like, I think as you mentioned, it's not 2020 anymore. So there's a lot of emphasis on profitability. Like EBITDA has now become like a really cool word that everybody uses these days. But
one of our entrepreneurs named her dog Ebbit to remember to have profits.
That's
right. For EBITDA or EBIT, she calls it Ebbit.
That's right. So I think it's just raise enough money that will get your product to market and just like build your business like you're building like a pool business, right? So here's how many customers you have, here's how much you charge them, here's how much the cost of running your business, and then just like work around that. Like the the times of building immensely venture-funded companies are gone, right? So now it's about solving real pain points that resonates with customers. In fact, last thing I'll say before I turn it over to Linda is I think a lot of founders make this mistake of looking at venture funding as validation. That is not validation at all. Validation is customers knocking at your door for wanting to buy your stuff. Like, that's validation.
That's so well said. And I'll just say, it feels good to raise that big round, though, right? It feels so good. I've got a company worth $1 billion, but that $1 billion, you can't eat it, right? That's all on paper at that point. Is that right, Linda? That's what you see with your entrepreneurs as well?
Yeah, I think, look, who you go into business with, who you partner with. And I always say, by the way, get a startup prenup. So that's my one piece of advice to you. Get a startup prenup, because at some point, somebody's interests are not going to align, and you will appreciate that, even if you're starting with your best friend. Trust me on that one. It's the same with who's your funder. I mean, you still have Fred Wilson on your board, but it's unusual that someone would stay with a company for 20 years. One of the things I will say, how many people are starting companies, by the way? 3? And how many of you plan to stay or building in New Haven or a smaller city? Yeah, I think one of the things we've seen, it's actually interesting. I think that it can work in two ways. Sometimes, and this won't, in some of our countries, there are less sophisticated, investors. So we were talking about the fact that we have great Nigerian entrepreneurs, and the ones who moved to London are getting great funders, and they're doing really well. The ones who stayed in Lagos and are getting funded by family offices from Europe, those are the first to pull out or fire the CEOs. So you have to be careful about who you have. But there's something beautiful about being in a smaller city or being in a place like New Haven, because the funders also are building for that ecosystem, and they're playing for the long game. And so make sure you interview your funders too, and make sure they're in it. What is their reason? It can't just be about the reverse engineered IPO or M&A or their valuation. If they're really in it to help you with your idea at scale and the ecosystem, that's when we found the best long-term fits.
Bing, I'm curious for you, as someone who is a scholar and who is doing the research, how did you get over the sort of trepidation of saying, well, I'm a researcher, I'm a scholar, I'm not a business person, right? How did you get over that?
I think the effort I had in the past 6-7 years, mainly motivated by ARPA-E funding. ARPA-E funding, they actually require you to have your technology to go to market, and in the commercialization plan as part of the effort, actually. I mean, 5 to 10% of effort is actually for T2M technology to market, right? So, and I spent a few years in Silicon Valley. I almost consider ARPA is like a VC, and without taking away your control and your share, taking away part of your company. So they really sincerely helping you. And because of that, and because of the style of my research, I got a lot of ARPA funding. And so one of the key steps in setting up a company, I mean, many professors actually, when they take ARPA funding, they work with another companies to basically, to take care of the T2M. And I chose to start my own companies and identify the CEO. I mean, the CEO is really the key, right? And I work very closely with CEO, and then I do my part, right? I do R&D, and the CEO will take care of the commercialization and also the commercialization effort. Yeah. So, and the CEO also, from time to time, we may need to, as the company grow, we may need to change the CEO to meet the new challenge and the fundraising, for example. Yeah.
That's really cool. Mahesh, I'm curious, especially from a Kickstarter perspective. We all know you, of course, through crowdfunding, right? But one of the things I think that's really interesting is that it's also about building a following. It's not just about the idea, it's about the execution of building that following. And so how does someone approach Kickstarter in the right way with that sort of movement building approach?
Actually, before I get into that, anybody knows of any big brands that came out of Kickstarter?
One. Yeah, what is it?
What is it?
I think it's a game. I think they raised about $2 million, and I went and raised another couple $100 million after that. I forgot the name of the game. It was a space simulation.
Exploding Kittens.
Exploding Kittens. That's right.
That one, yeah.
Who here has a Peloton? Peloton came out of Kickstarter. The Pebble Watch came out of Kickstarter. In fact, just riffing off of what Linda said about optimism, we had our biggest day ever this year in terms of dollars raised on the platform. And a lot of it raised by companies without the product being built at all. It was built based off of an idea that resonated with people. So they do a lot of, all these successful creators and brands and companies that raise money on Kickstarter have done the legwork of building excitement with their backers, potential backers. You can do that on Kickstarter, you can do that outside, you can do that on social media. Exploding Kittens is a great example. The founder built a big audience before they launched the game on Kickstarter. Who here reads fantasy novels? Anybody heard of Brandon Sanderson?
Yeah.
Brandon Sanderson raised $42 million on Kickstarter for his 4 books a few years ago. And not because the books were great. Books are great. Don't hate me. But he had a huge following before he started the campaign. He wrote The Wheel of Time, so people knew him. He had a following on Instagram, so he built that audience. And when he launched the campaign, it was just a big, big, big success. So I think it's one of my favorite cop shows is Bosch. Have you heard of Bosch? Bosch is a great show. So Bosch, have you heard of Bosch? No. It's a Prime show. It's based on the author Michael Connelly's books. And a phrase that Bosch uses is go knock on doors, right? So the creators who go knock on customers' doors before they build anything and ask for feedback and show them prototypes, get them focus groups, give them money to give them feedback. Those are the creators and companies and brands which will become successful, Kickstarter or otherwise. And yeah.
I love that. My line is that stalking is an underrated startup strategy. But I think that one of the things that you talk about that's so resonant is that you mentioned all these B2C brands, right? And I think it's obvious if you have Peloton or Book, you need to get to customers, you need to build your brand. What I would say, how many people who are building a B2B company? More of you. Well, anyway, you have to be storytellers too. And I think that's what whether you are selling a story, regardless of whether you're selling to businesses or selling to customers. And I think that that's the thing that we've talked about in this AI world. That's not going to get replaced by agents. I think that the real storytelling, the passion of the founder, and what's the problem, again, you're solving at scale. If you keep those things in mind, those are the people who are getting the funding.
And let's segue into AI. I mean, we wanted to make sure we covered this. I think it's important in these discussions to get rid of the hype and actually be clear about what is happening and what the real potential is here. So, Linda or Mahesh, what are you seeing first? And I'd also love to hear, Bing, if you have any perspective on what's happening with AI. So let's open that up to all three of you. I'd love a response on what do you see with AI and what's next.
Okay. I work on materials, right? So even for material research, AI is almost a crucial component now, for not only for telling you the story, but actually for accelerate the discovery and the process optimization, even manufacturing, right? So we are actually incorporating AI into our fundamental research at university, and even I wrote a big proposal last month, and the AI is a key component. And it's actually required, almost, yeah. And for companies, we also incorporate AI to optimize the process. And we're actually not, how should I say it? We're not actually bringing AI, we're not hiring any AI people, but working with AI companies and with AI teams to solve our problems. But we're bringing AI as a component to what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm. Good. So I mentioned Mercado Libre, the $130 billion company. They have 18,000 engineers. Their engineering teams have been doubling every year. And Marcus Galperin, before he stepped down as CEO, said that is the high point. They will not be hiring any more engineers or customer service agents. And we were just with 100 of our fastest growing entrepreneurs around the world. All of them said, we're not hiring more engineers. So I think, first of all, for people starting up, used to compete on talent, it was impossible. I mean, our friend Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn sold LinkedIn to Microsoft. Why? Because he couldn't compete on engineering talent. If LinkedIn can't compete on engineering talent, somebody who's starting up, you don't have to anymore. So figure out what agents can do. This is actually a great thing. And think about where the human element needs to be. And that's a great luxury. I would say a lot of what we're seeing in AI, again, are the B2B applications. They're not going to compete with OpenAI and the LLMs, but they're using, for so long, the software companies said, oh, it's data. Oh, it's data. That's good. There was nothing. Now AI is using the data to make smarter choices. So people are saying, and we also have people saying they're going to charge agent hours, and tokens, and not human hours. So I think the world is changing faster than we know it. Whoever's starting out now, you are at such an advantage because you don't have to undo or unlearn any of the things. So I go back to, this is the best time to be a founder now, and start from scratch and leapfrog.
I think I agree with everything that has been said about AI. I think the one thing I would say, and I promise I'm not a Luddite. The one thing I'll say is Founders Fund.
This guy is like one of the leaders from tech. He's definitely one of the
for the longest time, they had this code on their website. I don't know if they still have it. They said, we wanted flying cars. We got 140 characters, right? Yeah. So I think the killer application for AI is yet to come. Mm-hmm. I think the efficiencies we're talking about in terms of process optimization or requiring less engineers, I think that's just the tip of the spear. I think I don't think AI will ever replace creativity. Maybe it will, maybe not in my lifetime. Maybe in all of your lifetimes, but not in my lifetime. Because I think that's one thing I want to hold on to as a uniquely human thing that I want to control.
Although, you know what? I just met 2 days ago one of our entrepreneurs, Runway. Does anyone know Runway AI? People are now building entire films with entire special effects. It's all done in AI.
It's
kind of depressing.
It is kind of depressing.
This is only a couple years in.
That's right. So, but I do think that there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained through use of AI. I think it is true that AI will not take your jobs, but a person using AI will take your job. So as Linda said, if you're starting a company now, build it with AI in mind. But I think have we seen the best application of it yet? Probably not. My hope is it comes out of pharmaceuticals, like cancer research, genetic research, healthcare, biotech. I think my hope is that's where it really shines. I don't think creating cat videos is the future for AI. I think it's much more deeper than that.
Actually, we just got to invest in Manas AI, and it's founded by Sid Mukherjee at Columbia, but there's a number of Yale researchers working on this, and it's doing AI genomics and cancer research, and they're Yale faculty working on this company.
And so what's the world look like? It's more founders solving more problems that are more difficult with smaller teams? Is that the formulation here?
I think so. Who here remembers the cloud revolution? I mean, you've known it, right? So back in the day, I'm like,
you're old.
Yeah. Back in the day, when you have to build an app, right? You need to buy server space in a data center somewhere. You know all about it, right? But after AWS, after the cloud revolution, you don't need any of that, right? Even a average developer like me can just stand up massively scalable servers instantly and build a product that reaches millions of people. Yeah. Did the number of engineers reduce? Maybe in the beginning, yes, but eventually, as companies found out how to leverage cloud, I think they just deployed more engineers to it. So I think in the end, in the long term, this revolution will give birth to new jobs, new types of jobs, etc. But it'll make it easier to get going.
For a long time, people thought you can't scale a company if you're not in Silicon Valley. And I think that now we've seen the distribution of talent. We're going to with all the chaos in the world, again, there's many downsides, but the upside is we will further see the global distribution of talent. And back to what we've been talking about, the solving real world problems at scale. That doesn't matter how much compute you have or how many GPUs. You're not trying to compete with OpenAI, right? But I think that the number of problems that can be, solved through tech-enabled solutions, this is where we're seeing the mirroring of tech-enabled solutions with, new ideas, new problems, new people, new talent sources. And I think that starting a company, scaling a company outside Silicon Valley is now more possible than it's been in 2 decades. So that's I think another source of hope. What do you see?
Yeah, I think with the support of AI, with all this remote access of many resources, I think small teams, small companies can also make big innovations and then bring into the market if you do everything right. And I was actually almost after 20 years, I visited 15 years, I visited Silicon Valley. I think with Cindy, and I was just remembering what happened those years. And now I was in College Park, and now in New Haven area. I think I don't see major change, major barriers, yeah. But we actually, on the other side, we still need to interact with VCs. Those people are putting very often in Silicon Valley or Boston area. So I think there's still a little bit barrier in that sense. But in terms of idea, innovation, and compared to like 20 years ago, I think now the barrier is significantly reduced. Yeah. So I'm just saying that we can still do big things, even you are not in Silicon Valley, not in Boston area. Yeah.
So one of the things I often think about is that we as humans have plenty of problems out there yet to be solved, right? Yeah. We have so many problems that we, in society, and frankly, like, you pick a sector, you think about education, there's so much more that we can do to make sure that kids are learning at a level where they have opportunities, right? I mean, that's just one. In science, like, there's an opportunity here. I guess my next question is, what are you most excited about where you're seeing the entrepreneurs working, using AI or using sort of some of the new innovations at the cutting edge? I particularly think about, like, AI is a breakthrough that will cause breakthroughs, right? And those breakthroughs may be greater than anything we could have solved in our generation. If not, there are also risks. But, I want to understand, what do you think about what are those next breakthroughs that could be coming with that next wave?
Well, I told a story with Jeff, who's here, who I've known for many, many years, decades, and it's one of my favorite unexpected stories of AI, and it's a story of a company founded by a Tunisian founder, Karim Baghir, and he gets educated outside of Tunis. He's actually, how many people are Star Wars fans? Okay, Tatooine, the country of Tatooine, is actually a desert, remote town that Karim was born in. He's not even born in Tunis. He's born in Tatooine. And then he says, wait a minute. Well, if you're ambitious, you go abroad. But if you're really ambitious, you go back home. So he goes back to Tunisia and he starts using AI really early. And he's using it for health issues. And during COVID, his company, InstaDeep, detects the SARS-CoV variants faster than anyone else on the planet. He determines where they're coming from. And BioNTech and Pfizer CEOs realize this, and they get together, and so they use his AI to build the mRNA vaccine. Okay, so anyone who had the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, it was this company's AI research. BioNTech then buys the company. It was actually $700 million, Tunisian-founded company. And so what's he doing now? So he's doing 3 things. One is he's leading all of genomic research inside BioNTech. The second thing is he is working with the German government using AI to help the trains run on time. I'm like, isn't the joke that German trains run on time? He's like, well, not fast enough for the Germans, right? And then he is looking at crop. He's using his determinants to see in Africa, where he's from, what's going to happen with the crops. Like, let's understand before something happens, we can determine this. And then he's creating development centers for African engineers and AI specialists in Tunisia and in Rwanda. And so these things, and we're just at the tip, but those kind of stories are what keep me excited.
That should not just keep you excited, that should get you really, really excited. Mahesh, are you seeing the same kind of work?
I'm a bit boring than Linda, though. So I think
I think everybody in the world is, by the way.
So the two things that I'm looking forward to, and this is not like super forward looking. One is running LLMs is still very, very expensive. So here's a free idea for all of you. Reduce the cost of running LLMs, billion-dollar market or multi-billion-dollar market, right? So that's one thing I'm looking forward to, because even at Kickstarter, we can't really afford to run these like AI agents or OpenAI like consistently because they're expensive. So that's number one. Number two, I think the media publicizes the new things that are happening, like new creations through AI. One thing I always like remind people is billions of lines of code have already been written. They're like massive companies that exist with legacy code bases that are generating hundreds of billions in revenue. Whoever figures out how to optimize stuff that has already been written is another untapped multi-billion-dollar TAM. Because if you go to any big company, like who here has an account with Fidelity or Vanguard, Schwab, any of these companies, right? Guess what their backends are running on. Anybody wants to guess? Who said COBOL? Yes, they're running on COBOL right now. Your financial transactions and trades are like processed by a COBOL workbook in these big companies. And imagine what AI can do in those spaces, right? Like if somebody figures out a way to make them more efficient or automatically convert COBOL to something new, which is much more efficient, or figures out how to puppet master an existing system with fewer number of people, those are huge untapped opportunities. No one is looking at because they're unsexy, uncool. You can't like show them off in social media. Like nobody talks about it. But that's what excites me is what can companies and founders like some of you will end up doing to existing systems.
Yeah, maybe I can be more boring. I will be talking about material research again, like how AI can help innovate next generation materials, right? So, we learn physics, we learn chemistry, and we have textbooks. And if you take an AI approach, and you pretty much, figure out everything, right? And that can mathematically predict everything that, human being can ever make. But on the other side, we're talking about innovations, right? How can we actually innovate next generation engine materials that can improve the fuel efficiency by increasing the temperature, for example? So that actually will have to take a dramatic different approach. It means we have to break the rule that is actually in the textbooks, right? So then how can we take AI, for example? If you use AI will only tell you what the textbook will tell you, right? No matter how AI cannot help you to innovate by breaking rules. Yeah. So what is the gap here? I think the gap is really about data, right? So think about that. You do a lot of exotic experiment, and you generate a lot of data, and then you ask AI to take this new set of data in addition to the textbook. I think that can actually really lead to next generation materials innovation. I think this is really a typical example of how AI can help us innovate, right? So we have to play a very important role. We have to come out with some, exotic ideas that are not in the textbook at all, right? And with a system of AI, and you can actually invent next generation technologies.
Yeah, and just piggyback on what you said, Mahesh, is one of the things that I think holds back American founders sometimes is the sense that our systems work. Right? One of the things, if you look at Nubank that grew out of Brazil, was the banking system was so broken. David Vélez has created the top neobank in the world, right? And now Brazil itself is running on something called Pix. It's like Zelle. It's like instant transactions. And so 1 out of 5 companies we're seeing in Brazil now are running off of Pix. Right? And it's so much more efficient than our system. So sometimes seeing the world as not assuming, because things are more broken, but we don't think they are. They're working just well enough, like Fidelity and Schwab, right? But they're actually broken if you think about it. So think like an emerging market entrepreneur where nothing works. And actually, that's when you come up with these new ideas.
Actually, that's a really good point. I think there's so many boring verticals that nobody has looked at. Insurance, standing in line at the DMV, right? Like all these kinds of things, and nobody just grins and bears. But those are all places where all of you folks can innovate in, for sure.
Well, we heard at the beginning that the sense of chaos and uncertainty is actually a time where new ideas are formed. We've heard that these amazing new innovations, especially with AI, empower you to do something that nobody else has ever had the chance to do. There's a unique moment in history to be entrepreneurial and to be able to build. As we close, I just sort of love to sort of hear from each of you with that excitement, with that energy, and also that uncertainty, right? If you were in the audience as an entrepreneur who has some traction and is starting to get going and you think you've got something, what advice would you give to yourself if you were in their shoes? Like, give the advice of what you wish you would know if you were literally living their lives to try and build something great. Would love to just go down the line and hear from each of you, because there's been a great discussion. It's very inspiring, but I also want to get some real takeaways for our entrepreneurs in the room.
I'll start. So one thing I tell my son, who's 11, and all my team members and everybody who comes to me with concerns is nature does not like extremes. Eventually things will calm down, and as long as you have customers, as long as you're seeing traction, ignore all the noise around you and just keep going, right? So political scenarios, regime changes, leadership changes, they all come and go, right? And as long as you are staying true to your mission, staying true to what your customers are asking for, then just stick to it and just keep executing. 2009 is when Kickstarter started, right? So 2009 was I don't know, was it worse than now? I don't know, maybe.
TBD.
Yeah, TBD. Yeah, we're too early in the cycle to decide that.
exactly.
But 2009 was horrible. Okay, I thought the world was ending in 2009. But a lot of these big companies came out in 2009. Etsy, Kickstarter, a bunch of like companies came out. So Airbnb, yeah, that's right. So as long as you're staying true to your vision, staying true to your North Star, you'll be okay. You know, things will come and go, but as long as, one thing I try to tell people, and I've had like a lot of arguments with my bosses too, you can't ride the wave. I just hate doing that, right? Because waves come and go, right? Like what will stay true is the stories your customers are telling you, right? Like that'll stay true.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Half the Fortune 500 companies today were born during periods of recession or downturn, right? And if you talk to investors today, they think now's the best time to invest, because the worst time looking backwards was 2000 and 2001, when everyone thought it was great, and it was all the Tiger and SoftBank valuations that are now being undone, right? You don't have to undo anything. Back to there are some benefits. I would add two things. One is what you're doing here. I think I work with entrepreneurs from 45 countries. We call ourselves at Endeavor a global network of trust. It is very lonely being an entrepreneur. So having peers, being able to learn from people who've been there and done that and share experiences and share fears, right? Allow yourself to get a little vulnerable, to ask the tough questions of people and what they've seen and done. So continue to do things where you're in a circle of peers. And then I will end with one of the things I began: get a startup prenup. Trust me.
Ding.
Yeah, I see some students here, and I think I can share something that 3 points. I think the first thing is really, if you think about entrepreneur, if you think about starting a company, I think really about what you have actually, what you can offer on the table. Yeah, right. If you have a key technology, if you have a good idea, but you don't have the technology yet, so think about what you can really offer. Right. I think that what you really have. Number one. Number two, I think it's really about find the partner that can put everything together, the whole picture, right? So if you have a key technology, like, very often, but you don't have, business background, or, you need to find a partner, like to the CEO or another business professor, a student from business school, like SOM, for example, here. I think the third one is really think about product. What are you going to sell at the end of the day? And this actually, I learned this thing, after quite a few companies, startup companies here. And very often we have a great idea. We feel like we're going to change the world. Mm-hmm. And we have like 100 ideas. Okay, like yesterday I had a meeting with Breakthrough, and we had a lot of ideas, right? And then Brian told me, like, what is your one idea? Like, what is the product, right? So that means also stay focused here, right? And think about the final sales, first, yeah. I think that's what I can share.
Well, as we wrap up, we joked that we walked here, but I will say, like, I mean, Mahesh came all the way across the country just to be here with you and has many other wonderful things he does with his time. Linda is traveling the world. I think Linda actually gets places by teleporting, and I can't wait to figure that out because she's everywhere at once. And Bing is very busy building wonderful companies right here in New Haven. And so can we get a great round of applause for these three entrepreneurs?